Very happy to be here. Thank you for the very warm introduction. I'm very glad to be talking about community here in this setting because I believe the family is doing an amazing job at it. They talk a lot in the beginning, but they're really great. And yeah, I'd be very happy to share some thoughts on that. So my talk, my background is basically, as Hugo said, I built for 6 years or so the community of IM, basically from 0 to 20 million photographers. And about 1.5 years ago, I started what I do today, which is CoMatter. I'm going to talk a little bit about that before I jump into the talk. So we're going to talk about a history of epic fails in making people care about you. Because in the end, as actually Hugo said, building communities is all about care in the end. And a lot of companies and startups and people that want to start communities, actually, you just want people to come to you, and you want to grow, and you want to attract people, and you want to retain people. You want to give people this nice feeling of being a part of whatever you're building. So making people care about you is a lot about community building. So to give you a little bit of an overview of what we're doing is, I believe that communities have become the most important social units of our lives. What does it mean? I think we're living in a time where traditional structures like families and religions kind of like dissolve and become something different. And at the same time, we live in an age where the internet is basically surrounding all of us. So we're constantly connecting to other people, and we're building communities, and we're starting to start relationships with other people. And a lot of these places that we basically relate to other people are communities. What we do is we connect, educate, and invest in community leaders around the world. Very similar to the family, we believe that anyone can basically start a community today. Maybe not everyone should start a community, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And yeah, basically we connect people. So we have twice a year, we have a summit that's called the Community Leadership Summit, where we bring people together in Berlin and in Copenhagen from all different industries to talk about how to bring people together in the digital age. We educate people. We made this little report here. I'm going to talk about that. There's a few months. I can just like hand it around later. We have the podcast where we interview community leaders. And we're also starting to invest in startups that basically build communities and have community-driven models. And why do we do it? Because we want to help people participate, share, and create value together, because we really think that this is where the future lies. So let's start with this question. What the fuck is a community? This is actually really what drives me when I started CoMatter around 1.5 years ago, because I realized from my experience at IM, community has become such an integral part of what we were and how we differentiated ourselves, especially in the times when we kind of like were a competitor to Instagram, and people were like, okay, I am an Instagram, what is the difference? And is it like YouTube and Vimeo? And we realized that actually the community is really what made a difference. The way that people related to us, the way that people felt part of our platform and of our app. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized so many people want to start a community or build communities. But when I talk to people about it, they have very different understandings of community. And I think this is one of the key challenges of the word community, because somehow anything and everything is a community today. You can basically, you go to the supermarket, you buy a box of cereals, and probably there's an advertising on it like, join our community online and learn more about our cereals, or be a cereal lover. And in the end, it's marketing, and people just want you to participate in some competition or something. That's not really what I believe is a community. At the same time, often community, the definition of, especially in startups in the tech space, is a lot like customer support or event organization, and kind of like supporting roles of the company, but not really integral roles. Basically, what we believe in is that a community is really part of the core DNA of any company if you do it right. So our definition of community is, a community is a group of people participating around a shared purpose. And the emphasis here is on purpose, because I think in order to start a community, you need to solve a problem. You need to have a reason why people want to be part of your community. There needs to be a reason why you need more people to solve your problem or to achieve something, and why you can't do it yourself or together with your team. So the purpose is really important, that you have that and you're able to communicate it to people so that people can join you. And participating is the second emphasis, because I believe a community only works if there's some sort of participation of people. And participation means actively getting involved. And that could be a transaction, that could be sharing knowledge, that could be helping other people, that could be hosting a meetup, that could be offering your couch, that could be all kinds of different things. But it's more than just basically passively consuming, for example, social media. So a lot of people come to us and say, hey, you know, we want to have help, you know, building our community. And then you start asking questions and you realize they just want an Instagram account with 1 million followers. And they don't care if that's a community or not. So I think participating is a really important part of understanding how a community works. So all of this is fine and easy when, for example, you know, you have a cause to say, I want to reduce food waste in my city, or I'm really annoyed by all the garbage in the parks. And, you know, I want to gather other people that share the same vision, and I'm going to get them together, and every Sunday we're going to meet and collect garbage in the parks, and after that we're going to have coffee and tea, and we're going to feel great, and I'm connecting to like-minded people. So you can easily start a community like that. You know, start a Facebook group, you go on Twitter, you start, you know, where are like-minded people? If it really works, maybe people in other cities want to do the same, and, you know, that's how global communities are being created today. The challenge comes in is when a brand or a startup or any commercial entity wants to be part of the game. Because the problem or the challenge that we see is that people build communities because of different reasons. So in this report that we've done, one of the key insights that we had is we asked the 150 experts that are all basically leading communities at different places, why do you actually engage with your users? I mean, why do you build a community? Why do you, why do you do that? And the number one reason is growth. So people start, or tech startups, or digital places that have some commercial background, start communities because they want to grow. They want to get people on board, and ideally, these people become so passionate about their community that they tell all their friends about it. And so you have these viral network effects that everyone's going to start your startup or your company, and you're going to grow to millions of people without spending any marketing dollar. That's kind of like the golden dream of everybody. But then, that's fair enough to say that, right? But then, you know, why do you think people become part of your community? And the number one reason why people become part of communities is not because they want to help other companies grow. They want to connect to other people. They want to get education. They want to learn something. They want to develop themselves. They want to get access to stuff that they otherwise can't get access to. They want to get recognition for things. So people join communities for other reasons than most companies build communities for, which basically results in that people want connections, educations, entertainment, recognition, access. Companies want growth, content, free content that people produce, revenue, retention, knowledge. And we call this the eternal struggle. Like, we always use these like little pictures of wrestlers because we think that actually communities, the classic picture of community is always like a round circle of people, you know, holding hands and being happy. But actually, you know, it can be a constant struggle to make all these parties happy. But what I believe in is that the communities that are really successful in the long run kind of like strike this very fine balance between, which means every party that's part of the community gets something out of it. A brand that basically invests money in growing a community and running a community and offering its members something, get what they want, they grow and they get content and they get revenue maybe, but also the people get something. You know, the people can use this platform to connect to each other. So the thing is, I believe that the good news about this is we have more power and influence than ever before. So even, you know, if we're not happy with, you know, being part of a community or the way some things are running, we don't need to stay silent. Like, what we basically have through social media and the tools that are in our hands right now is we can easily, you know, start a counter movement and say, hey, let's do something else, and we can move elsewhere. And the tools to bring people together are out there for anyone to use. So anyone can start a community today. You know, Eventbrite is out there, Typeform, Airtable, all these tools that basically 10 or 15 years ago you really needed like a database and a developer to build a community platform are basically freely out there. So anyone can start a community. So how do you actually do it? This is now like the part of like talking about epic fails. What I believe is, first of all, a lot of people, when they want to start a community, is they host a meetup. So, you know, you're like, hey, I have this idea, I want to start something. Let's get people together. You know, similar to us here being in a room, we all come here for a shared purpose. So hosting a meetup is great. hosting a meetup means getting people into one room, talking about certain things that we all kind of like have a passion about, and then looking people into the eyes, have this sparkle and so on. This is from a recent summit that we've done early September in Copenhagen. So what I believe though, what meetups are not is, meetups are not growth tools. So a lot of companies or startups start hosting meetups because essentially they want to, get the word out there. They want to have more people using their app. They want to have more people using their service or their product. And then in the end of the day, they realized, well, actually, we just, put in a lot of money and effort to host this meetup and get people together, and we have no more signups to our app the day after. People went away and had a free drink, and nothing happened. So my understanding of a meetup is it can be great to do this. It can be great to get people in a room, exchange stories, exchange thoughts, but it's not going to help you grow your company. The conversion from people coming together in a room and then signing up to something online or downloading an app is extremely hard. So a lot of people, companies that start meetups are disappointed after a while because they don't get what they expect. They want to grow, but actually nothing happens. Another way to start to scale your community is to create an ambassador network. So what we've done at IAM basically is we started having all these meetups around the world, right? Or basically in Berlin. And then the natural thing that you think is like, well, actually, this is just us here in Berlin starting these meetups, and we can max make one a month or twice a month. So why don't we scale this around the world and have this group of ambassadors do these meetups for us, or host events for us, and we call them ambassadors, and we empower them to do that, and that's amazing. And actually, it worked really well for us. This was about 5 or 6 years ago, I think, when we started an ambassador network, and we had this guy on the left. He was in New York, she was in Australia, that was me in Italy, with a few people that were basically IAM ambassadors, and we had this amazing network of ambassadors all around the world that basically helped us scale and host meetups every quarter and get people together. What is the danger of hosting an ambassador group or having an ambassador group? I think the key danger, or the key challenge, is that you give a lot of power about your brand away to other people, and it's very hard to control that. Very successful examples, for example, of ambassadors are TEDx events. So TED scaled, by having TEDx events in all of these different places. Creative Mornings, if any one of you knows, basically started in New York, is now all around the world, where people around the world host Creative Mornings events. And I have a lot of respect for these networks, because it's extremely hard to scale something and have a certain quality level, because you don't have any control about people, what they do. So for example, something that happened, one of my favorite stories from my time at IAM is, we had this ambassador somewhere in Sweden, and he was super engaged and super proud, and he called himself an IAM ambassador. And 5 years ago, I think it was 2013, in September, after the latest Apple keynote, I wake up and I turn on my computer and have this message by a guy saying, hey, I want to talk to someone at IAM because one of your employees threatened to kill me. And I was like, fuck, what happened? I mean, I don't know. So I realized what happened basically while I was sleeping is, the new iPhone came out. I think it was the iPhone 5. And there was some, Mac user forum, and this one ambassador of ours was like this super hard Apple fanboy. And so someone in this forum said, I don't know, this Android phone is better than the new iPhone. And he completely freaked out, and he was like bipolar. And on his Facebook profile, he had written as his job title, I am ambassador. So basically, there was this whole conversation about the guy basically threatening to kill this other guy at the other end of the world because he said Android phones are better than iPhones. And we're having this mess to clean up because they thought it was an employee of our team. So in the end, we actually closed the ambassador group after about 1.5 years because stuff like this happened. I would probably, do this differently this time, next time. And they're very successful examples, but stuff like this can happen. There's always this magic dream of let's give people the power, and they follow their passion and they do meetups and they wear our t-shirts, but there's a dark side to it that you can't control. So just saying this can happen. And I think the next natural step is once you started with hosting meetups, having people in one room, seeing there's people kind of react to your purpose and to your vision, and then you might have ambassadors and people doing this. The obvious thing you want to do is start something online, start an online community. And there's so many ways you can do it. You can do Facebook groups, you can do Telegram, you can do Slack channels, and so on. I think it has become extremely hard to do this properly, because how many Facebook groups or Slack channels are you part of that are basically completely dead after a few months? I'm part of like a lot of them. So engaging people in the long run in something is extremely hard, I think, online, and it all boils down to your communication and to your purpose and so on. I just mentioned this as an example because a lot of people start communities by basically starting a Facebook group or starting a Telegram channel, or say, hey, let's just get together, and then nothing happens. Or like people are excited in the first 2 weeks and they start posting, but then it becomes completely irrelevant. People start only promoting their own activities, there's no real purpose to it, and you basically abandon the whole thing. And then you're like, why did my community not work? Well, you know, something was wrong with it, and basically it's dead now. There's tons of other examples of like how things can go wrong in building communities, and actually when I think about it, the number one learning that I have is you fail all the time. When you bring people together and you want to create this global community of thousands of millions of people that engage with you and create something with you, there's a lot of learnings and a lot of failures all the time. But what matters is how you deal with it. And you can't believe how many times I've said sorry to people. People were disappointed. They hosted this meetup in Denver, and then they realized no one lives in Denver, and no one came. And how many times you basically like stay in conversations, guys, I'm sorry, but in the end, like often people stayed because they realized, as Hugo said, you care about them. And you actually, there's a real human on the other side of the screen that actually gives a shit about you. And that makes a lot. And I think that all boils down to, in the end, what values are behind your community and why you actually do it. And if you do it because you generally believe that bringing people together around this shared purpose has a meaning and gives sense to people's lives, or if you just want to do it to grow and basically, get millions of revenue from people. So, to finish this up, I just want to give you 3 of my favorite examples. So the 10 golden rules of building communities that matter is basically, I wrote them like 1.5 years ago, kind of like as a funny joke, but whenever I look at them, I still believe in them in some way. You can see them on our website. And I picked 3 that I think are really meaningful to me. So I believe communities need leaders, not managers. I think I'm very much against this notion of the community manager that is the title of a lot of job roles that you find on startup platforms and so on. I think the title community manager is by itself often wrong, because you need a manager once you have a community, once you have thousands or millions of people already engaging in your product or service or your cause, and what you need to do is like to manage them. That's fine, then you need a manager. But in order to start a community, you need to have leaders. And that leader ideally is you who's starting the community or who's founding a company, and not someone you hire. Because you need to tell people where to go and why you want to go there. And only if you manage to do that, people will follow you and people want to be part of that. The other one is trust is the most valuable good you can achieve. So I really believe that trust is one of the most important things we have in our world today. To trust someone or to trust a platform or to trust a product is worth a lot. And it's often like a long journey to go there, that people trust you. So once you know that you've achieved that, once you know that people have this relationship to you, that they basically believe in you and feel like, okay, even if they fuck up, I'm going to give them my trust. Value this a lot and don't fuck it up. And the third one is don't fuck it up. It's quite obvious, but in the end, what I really believe in is that the communities that I am part of and the communities that I find fascinating really provide meaning in people's lives. What we've done with IM was basically build this photography community where a lot of people developed their passion for photography and became sometimes professional photographers and really, found new friends through this platform that shared their passion for photography. And so I think if you build something like that, if you build a platform, if you build a community where millions or even thousands or even maybe 100 people are part of, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility towards them that you maintain this platform and that you stay true to it, because if you take it away, it really sucks. People lose something out of their lives that has become really meaningful to them. So that's why I really believe in don't fuck it up and understand the responsibility of what you're building. That's it from my side. You can see more on comatter.com or talk to me. There's the reports, and I'm going to be part of the Q&A. Yes.
I just wanted to say, If you have a question, keep it, because after Nicolas' talk, we're going to give both of them on stage, and you can shoot them with questions. And now again, big round of applause for Nicolas if he's around.
Mic check, mic check. All right. Hey, so yeah, thanks for the invitation. I'm really, really happy to be here. Also because I'm following your newsletter and reading all of your articles. So for me, this is like a real honor to present after you. Yeah, the title is Building a Self-Sustaining Community with me. So as no one of you or very little of you know Yodel actually, I think first thing to do, there you go, is talking a little bit about myself. So I'm Niklas. I'm obviously a beard visionary. Also head of community at Yodel, and there I'm responsible for moderation and safety, support, community communication, and community happiness. And I also was there from the very start. We started 4 years ago, and yeah, since then we grew to over 2,000 communities. We have 1 million daily active users over it slightly, and we had a lot of learnings about communities, and a few of them I want to share here. So what is Yodel? The German native speakers will think about this a little bit, but that's actually not what I have been doing for the past 4 years. So Yodel is an app that a friend of mine started, and we are engaging in location-based communication. We don't have public profiles, and what we're trying to build, what we're trying to do is let you instantly engage with the people nearby. So basically you have this feed, you can post messages there, you can post pictures, you can vote, you can comment. And the most important thing is that everything you're going to see is everything that people around you are posting in a 10-kilometer radius. And this is pretty unique, and it led to a lot of new stuff. Basically people connecting and interacting on a local level. And yeah, we're currently active in the Nordics, in DACH, in France, Italy, and Saudi Arabia. One important thing to keep in mind is that we're not a top-down community. What I mean by a top-down community is that you start with a core community, and then you kind of grow, and then you separate it. You maybe do like a hot page or something like that. Yodel is a little bit different. That's why, yeah, because we have like around 2,000 communities, and we started each of them a little bit by themselves, right? So every city is a little bit different. Every country is super different. I mean, imagine we have Saudi Arabia and we have Sweden. They couldn't be more different. They are both using the same app with like the same framework. So what was from the very start very important for us is not only building communities, but building the framework that all of those communities can thrive, that they can engage with each other, that they can have meaningful interactions. And so one of the articles I can suggest to you is The Medium is the Message. What it basically says is that how you build your product, how you set it up, will determine where it will go. For example, for us, we don't have public profiles, so you have the anonymity. And this immediately changes a lot, and it will lead to, on the positive side, very authentic and very real communication between the people. It's very frictionless, right? You don't have to think about, okay, who's gonna see that? Will it be on my record, like in Facebook, for the rest of my life? Will my family see it? You can be real, you can really be your authentic self. On the flip side, people will engage in like very nasty stuff at times, right? So we have that deeply ingrained in our product. And as one city could be super amazing and the next city could be like super fucking bad, we started from very early on to try to build into the product, into our medium, some security and dynamics that will help us along the way. And yeah, so a little bit what can happen if you start connecting people on a local level are like two stories that are very dear to me. One is about a yodeler, the young guy over there, and he was in the same room in the hospital as a homeless person. And they talked a lot, and he realized, oh God, this guy, he is trying so desperately, so hard to get back on his feet, and it's just not working. And he posted his message, and he shared the story, and people got together to help this guy, and they completely turned around the life of that homeless dude. He has a home now, he has a job, they fixed his teeth, everything went better. And it basically started because he was on a platform where people could connect locally, and also because in the end, what matters on Yodel is what you have to say, not really who you are. Yeah, so I was thinking about, okay, the family asked me to talk about a little bit communities, right? So more and more businesses discover the value of communities, maybe for the wrong reasons, but they try to engage in it, right? So a lot of them are trying to build support communities where they get like new ideas, where they get feedback, and they try to engage with the customers, try to get like brand loyalty and stuff. But also there are a lot of new, really, really exciting community-based businesses, right? Airbnb, Wikipedia, Reddit, all of them are focused on community first, and they really showed how strong and how important that can be. And yeah, one of the things, a strong community also can beat money all the time, right? If you don't believe me, you can check which of them you know and where you look up your facts. Yeah, so I was thinking about, okay, what to talk about, right? And as he already started to talk about how to start a community, how to engage users, I was thinking about, okay, what could be the next step? What could be important for people to know after, when you have a community? Like, how can you then lead the community or manage the community? So what I wanted to talk about is a little bit, okay, when you have a community, what are like really, really important things that you shouldn't fuck up? And for me, I chose like 3 really important things that I work on a lot. One is power users, how you can keep them engaged and how you can make sure they stay on your site and help your community to thrive, help them to help you. Rules and guidelines, which is a super important topic because they have to evolve, right? You can never really get it right the first time. And moderation and safety, which especially at Yodel, as we are anonymous, was like from the very first day, one of the most important things. All right, power users, right? Every community has like the 1% that does like 90% of the value, that are really super, super fucking dedicated, and they are the most creative, most passionate, and really one of the best people in your community. And they might be more committed to the community than even you are, right? They love it. And it's important to have those people, and it's important to always talk to them, to always figure out, okay, what do they need? What do they see? You should always be in touch with them at all time. This can be stressful at times, right? I have WhatsApp groups, I have like Slack groups where I get like text that's, I don't know, Sunday evening, you should check this out and stuff. Like I'm on basically working 24/7, but it's super important. It's also important to always over-communicate with them, right? They are your eyes and ears out there. At some level of scale, you cannot look into every city that every community that you're managing, right? But they will be everywhere. And if you give them the means to connect with you, they will always show you where are the problems, what do we need to change. Also with over-communication, I'm talking about if you do something, let them know in advance, ask for feedback, try to get them on board with you, try to explain your reasoning if it's like a decision that they don't like, right? Also, you should start to try to help them helping you. Because if you just let them, try to help, but you don't guide them, you don't have the processes, you don't have the means of communication, it will be just a mess. And everyone will just pull in a different direction and they won't really help you. Next thing, remember that this is also a two-way street, right? You don't expect them to give and give and give and don't get anything back. Sorry. Yeah. So in the end, what's super important is that they also feel that they have that they can contribute, that they have a say in your decisions, that you are listening to them, that they are contributing, that they are allowed to help. And last but not least, be real, be honest with them. Always talk to them and really be yourself. That can also mean to apologize. That can also mean to say that you fucked up, but never lie to them. And if you cannot tell the truth, tell them the reason why you cannot tell them the truth, right? Because if you are not real to them, if you're just trying to lie your way out of it, or you're not telling them the whole truth, in the end, you're gonna lose their trust. And if you lose their trust, if they distrust you, your most amazing users could become your biggest enemies. And this is why a lot of communities, like I think you all remember Dig, for example, which was bigger than Reddit, but then they fucked it up and all of their users basically disappeared. How we do it at Yodel, we have some WhatsApp groups, but we're trying to get them all in our Yodel agency, which is a Slack group where we have, like, for every country, the most dedicated users that kind of stood out to us. They earned 1 million karma. They were like the most dedicated moderators, and we gave them a direct means of communication with us, where they can put in feature ideas. They can tell us about bugs. They can talk with other yodelers and basically help us to build the best possible product. And yeah, we also have Trello boards and stuff like that. Just take with you, always give them the possibility to talk to you. Some issues that you will run into if you let your power users talk to you all the time. One thing is like this: we absolutely fucking need this feature, right? They're gonna demand a lot of features, and it's super tough because on one hand you really want to build the best product for them, but on the other hand you also have to keep in mind like a lot of other things. So why not just building it? So one of the reasons is death by features. What could happen if you just keep building all those little features that power users want to have is that you're going to add up, just accumulate like a lot of really, really small features that then only a fraction of your users actually will use, right? And it will clutter your UI. User experience, especially for new users, will be super devastating. And so you always have to really select the really important stuff. Find out what's the important stuff. Second problem is the we need a ladder problem. Imagine they come up with the solution. They come with you not with the problem. They come with you already with the solution. But they don't know the possibilities that you have, right? So for example, if they want a ladder, that could mean a lot of things, right? That could mean that they want to reach the second floor. Maybe an elevator would be the better solution, right? But they come with you already with the solution, and this narrows down like the full discussion. So you're only talking about what kind of ladder do we want to build? What's the color of the ladder? But in the end, what they maybe need is just a completely different thing, and you can build it better. So try to always understand the need behind it. Try to understand why they need the ladder. What is it that drives them, right? Never try to focus on the solutions. First, focus on the problem. Next one is the complete picture. So you have a completely different view on the whole community than most of your power users, right? They are using your product, they are really deep in the community, but they don't have the full view on all these things. And they might want to think short term, but they don't see the long term effects. One thing that happened right at the beginning of our community, first community Aachen, it's where I started, and this happened. So you can post pictures, and suddenly the first tit pic appeared. Everyone got super excited, engagement through the roof. People loved it, and we thought it's a good thing, right? We got more registrations, people super engaged. Suddenly, like, there was this one power user, he was like, fuck, I'm on Yodel 24/7, and suddenly I miss all the tit pics. Like, what the fuck? We need to organize this better. So he was proposing that they meet every Sunday, they call it the Porn Yodel Sunday. And the only time to post those pictures is Sunday. And it worked. The whole community, Sunday, they gathered, and it was crazy. Like every Sunday, our servers went down. People didn't care. They just refreshed. And it was really crazy. And it got to a point, like this was like the most famous one, the hashtag queen. It was like the Karo Hemd queen. I don't know, she always wore like this shirt. And she had a hashtag Queen's Army, and then the most famous girls, they met up, and like it was really crazy. But at some point we realized, like fuck, suddenly everyone was only talking about like nude pics, like people got really aggressive, like if someone posted something else, he got downvoted, he got harassed. And we started seeing like all this negative stuff. Like a lot of the new registrations, they didn't care about connecting with other people. They wanted to see nudes, right? And so we called them the tit tourists. And they started to really harass the community. And so we came to the decision to stop it and to not allow nude pics anymore. And obviously people hated us. We had like huge backlash. People were like, I'm gonna build my own Yodel and it's gonna be full of nude pics and stuff like that. People hated on us. But in the end, for the long term, it was just the best decision we could take. Because in the end, if we allow that unregulated, we just become a chat roulette. And we saw that happening, and we needed to stop that. And yeah, we talked a lot with our power users about that, and they kind of understood it. And yeah. All right, next one is terrible problems versus minor annoyances. What they will tell you that it's a terrible problem, but a lot of the times it's not. It's like a mild annoyance. For example, one of our power users, he follows, like, we have channels now, which is like subreddit-like kind of style, and he follows like 120 of them. And he's like, all the time I have to search, and you have to kind of, I don't know, I have to favorite them somehow. And he comes up with a lot of solutions, and he's like, I cannot use the product anymore. I cannot. I would churn. And we were like, okay, we get it, but the normal person, like, you're the only one with that many channels, you know? And to this very day, he's still using it. He doesn't really have a problem with it. It was more of a minor annoyance. Nope. All right. There are obviously some solutions to that. So what you always should do, and what, if you have a tech company you're familiar with, product prioritization. We're doing it with RISE, like reach, impact, confidence, and effort. And then we do like sum them up, and biggest score wins. Next one is talking to all the users. So this is also something I encourage you to do all the time. Talk to your power users all the time, but also talk to the people that are kind of harder to reach. Because your community is not only your power users. Even though they are one of the most important parts of your community, you always have to take care of the other parts as well. Talk to potential users, talk to churned users, talk to new users, and figure out if it's a problem just for a few people or if it's a real problem for everyone. Then finding smart solutions, try to maybe figure out, okay, they have this problem, they have this problem, how could we maybe solve both in one feature, so you don't have to build like 5,000 different features. And some words of caution: don't neglect your power users' needs all the time, because you say like, okay, it's only this tiny fraction. Some of the stuff they need desperately. Best thing is you have to trust your gut. You have to talk to a lot of users. One example is moderation. Moderation is one of the most important features you can invest in, but it's always super hard to get. Another one is power users versus data. A lot of the things that the power users will tell you, you cannot see in the data. They will tell you that the vibe is slightly going toxic. And mostly you cannot see that. You look at the flags that you have, you look at the what we call happy ratio. It's like upvotes divided by downvotes, so we know how many positive experiences for every negative one. And the power users actually told us that this is not good way before we saw that. There were some power users who were like, this is not what Yodel is about, and this is not what Yodel should be about. And they saw it before we saw it. It was a really, really intense lesson for us. And they see some vibes, like minor changes, way before you can do it, before you can see it. So even though your data isn't showing it, always listen to your power users and then try to find a good solution. Yeah, next one, rules and guidelines. So running a community is a little bit like running a country. I have tremendous respect now for all the politicians, and I kind of understand why it's so hard to do. But one of the most important bases for every country is the law, right? How do we live together as a society, and what rules do we apply? And every country needs a solid law. Every community needs rules and guidelines. And there are basically two ways of coming up with laws. Like, one is sitting down and discussing, okay, what do we want in our community and what's a no-go? So, for example, a really easy one is racism, right? It's like no one wants that in their community, maybe some people, but not good communities. And yeah, and the second one is basically shit happens and you adjust your rules to it. Because you can never like figure out everything in advance. Like for us, we didn't really thought about that people might be very interested in sharing nude pictures. They are till this very day. They do everything to come past our moderation and safety, just to post their dick. But yeah, one thing to keep in mind: keep them as simple as possible and understandable, and try to keep them short. They will grow over time. You will have like a lot of new rules, but in the end, it's super important that humans can read them and understand them, and best they can read it in like 5 seconds, right? So what we do, we have like a very simple version, what we show our users, and our moderators have like the long ass version with examples, and this is good, this is not good, and stuff like that. Next one, stay agile. So whenever something happens and you feel the need to adjust, just do it. And yeah, it sounds simple, right? But it's not. So even the really, really easy rules, like no racism, at some point you're gonna find out that there are some clear blocks, there are some clear allows, and there are the edge cases. And I'm actually very aware of the irony that the edge cases are in the middle and not on the edges. But at some point you're just gonna find cases where you're not sure anymore. And for me, what I found is humor is very, very hard to judge. If you think about it, dark humor, is it allowed, is it not allowed? Where's the line? Like, this joke might be okay, this not. It's super, super tough. Then today, political opinions. We had the elections in Sweden, which was super tough because they also have this right-wing party and they are very vocal and they come to Yodel and they try to talk to people, and it got like super, super aggressive. It's a very, very difficult topic. And then always freedom of speech, which is also like the default thing that everyone who broke the rules will come to and say, but this is freedom of speech, I can't say that. No, you can't, man. Sex, people will always use everything you build kind of to do sex. I don't know. It's just the rule of life. Actually, there's this story, like Disney tried to build a community or like an online role game, and they tried everything to not have it sexual. So you couldn't even type. They had like just predefined sentences that you could exchange with people. They found a way to make it sexual. They found like some, I don't know, it was like a zucchini or something, and you could buy the zucchini. So if you buy the zucchini, it was like a sexual thing. Super weird. They abandoned the project, but yeah, so they're gonna try to use everything to find sex, and yeah. And yeah, then also all the unsolved issues in society, like stuff we don't really like to talk about, which is mostly when it's the line crossed with humor, what is with political opinions. But yeah, so you have to deal with them. What will help you in that is having a clear purpose. If you have a clear purpose and you can align people on those purpose, will help you along the way so much. It's incredible. Clear values also help, because what you can do is like imagine a liberal and a conservative, and they're fighting, right? They're fighting like really, really badly about some issue. If you align both and you say like, okay, you both actually just try to find a way to make this country better, to make it better to live here for everyone, right? Suddenly they start to talk differently to each other because they understand the other person just wants to reach the same goal with a different way. So if you have those things, they are like in a hierarchy way above the rules. It will help you, and it will help you to align people that are fighting. And so this is super important to have. Then also some words of caution. TTP, who knows what TTP means? Time to penis. You won. So whatever you build, people will try to make a penis out of it. Normally you measure time to penis like how good you are. It's like, I think normally it takes like minutes or like 10 minutes. People will find a way. Same thing, Minecraft, first thing people build is a huge penis, obviously. And yeah, second one is your community will always test your limits. So if you draw the line here, they will stick like the little finger, and if you slap it, they're like, no, man, it's just little finger, man. But if you don't slap it, it's the hand. Then they're gonna test. They're gonna test like when you will lose your cool. So this is, I think, completely normal. You see it in human behavior all the time, and especially trolls are like very, very committed to test the limits. If you say it's okay to say it XYZ, they're gonna try to use that and to just, I don't know, say really, really bad things in that way. And one of the last things to rules and guidelines, even though it's more moderation and safety, suicide prevention. One of the most important things, if people really care about your community, there will be people that will share some suicidal thoughts. You should always be ready for that, because no one here wants to have problems like being the person who didn't really call the police, who hadn't security processes in place. And what can happen? What happened to us? Like, yeah, I live in the same apartment with the founder and two other guys that work for Yodel. And so what the police did, they found like a post on Yodel where someone expressed that they want to kill themselves. They contacted us. We sent them the data to try to help the person. And they got the email from the COO, who's Tim Schmitz. And they were like, oh, so this guy is Tim Schmitz. He was like, here's the data. It's in the file. The guy is in Munich. And they were like, oh, it's Tim Schmitz. So they tried to call Tim. Tim didn't answer the phone. So next thing they do, obviously, is just break our door. Completely devastating. Afterwards, they decided, okay, maybe we call the people who lives with Tim. So they called my other roommate, Alex, head of product at Yodel, and they were like, are you with Tim? Are you with Tim? And he was like, no, what's up? Tim is suicidal. And he was like, no, he's not. Yes. And if you know Tim, you know he's not suicidal, like really opposite of it. And then they were like, but he's suicidal on Yodel. And then we figured out, okay, they just didn't get that the email, the guy who sends the email, it's not the person, you know. But we got a new free door, so that's good. Yeah, then real quick, moderation, as I said already, for us, it's a really big focus. Having rules in place is fine, but you need also some way to enforce them, right? So for me, there are like two possibilities, and there will be a spectrum, right? It's not like either this or this. You can intermix them. Either you do it all in-house, like for example, Facebook would do it, so they don't want to give up control over their community. Really costly, and also I like more to give your community the tools to actually self-govern, right? Because in the end, if you have a self-sustaining community, you're more like stewards. Look, you try to help them, but you're not really like, you don't really want to interfere and do all the decisions, right? So personally, I really prefer this option and giving the community the tools, giving the power users tools to make sure that your community stays awesome. Just one word of caution: what can be exploited will be. Like if you give people this stuff, 1%, like the bad people, they try to exploit it, right? So in moderation, because it's such a big topic and every community will do it a little bit differently. Just a quick thing what we do at Yodel. So we actually managed to have like 100,000 flags a day, and we managed to get like 80% of them out in under 10 minutes, which is actually pretty good. How we do it is we have like this Tinder-like Tinder-like interface, and we try to, like, one of the biggest challenges for us was to make sure that the moderators in one city apply to the same rules as the moderators in other cities. So one city cannot turn completely toxic because the moderators suck, right? So what we did is, like, we have kind of a democracy. You have like 10 or more moderators who have to decide on one post, and always security algorithms that double check their decisions. We have posts where we know what the decision should be. We give it to them. If they fail, we will not take their decisions in account and stuff like that. So if you want to know more about that, just approach me. Also, we choose them based on the history, blah, 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 yeah. Security algorithms. All right, thanks a lot. And yeah, it was awesome to be here.
Thank you very much, man.
So, actually, a question for both of you guys. How do you deliver bad news to a community?
Just gonna start, right? I don't know, I would say as open as possible. It really depends also on the news that you're offering. So I would basically try to be as open and, as I said, as real as possible. People have a huge, like they can forgive you. But if you try to not be real with them and they cannot trust what you say, then it's gonna be most of the time worse than if you just say the truth.
I mean, to have a short answer, I think I would keep all communications channels open 24/7 and be there to answer questions. I can give one example. Does this work actually? Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, one example is, when we, with IAM, at some point in 2014, we launched this marketplace. So that was not specifically bad news, but we basically went from being like this free and open community for anyone to download and the app for free and upload everything for free. Everything was for free, to start having a business model and telling people, we're gonna start selling your pictures, and we give you 50% of it. But still, this is a big change, and we were super scared that people will completely abandon our community and basically ruin everything, and we're gonna close shop the next day. So we were very sensitive of how we communicated it, but actually the day after we sent the newsletter, we had an open forum at our office. We invited the Berlin community to it. We had a live stream. We told people they can ask questions all the time, and we were ready to deal with it. And of course, we tried to minimize risk and have some questions prepared. And of course, you prepare diplomatic answers, but you are open and you basically show, well, we are part of this journey together. We don't have the final answer, but we need to make money at some point. And that's how we dealt with it. And yeah, gladly it went well.
Okay, I have a question for Yodel. Your slide said that you have 50,000 moderators. How many of those are volunteers and how many of those are actually on your staff and doing this full time?
So from those 50,000, from those 50,000, all of them are volunteers. Okay. So we choose them based on the history. On our staff, we have one person per country. In Germany, Germany and Saudi Arabia, as they are our two biggest markets, we have 3, but not full time.
Okay. got quite a few questions for Jodel. One of them is about JigJag. I think that was your main competitor in the US. And I was wondering, how did JigJag closing affect your business model?
So at the time when they closed, we didn't have a business model. So didn't really affect the business model. But yeah, the good thing about JigJag was that we were very similar. And they actually got a huge funding, which proved our concept, which proved our product, but then they screwed it up like really, really badly. One of the things is that they never really listened to the feedback of their users. Like, we talked to some of those, of the people there, and they really did some updates that were really, really bad. And also, I think they didn't really have this community-driven way of thinking about the things, right? So when we asked them, for example, how they, like, not them, but some people that worked there, how they measured if a community is toxic or not toxic. And they were just like, yeah, if the DAOs are growing. And we were like, yeah, but they might be growing due to like porn or whatever, you know, like due to stuff that is just not sustainable. And they were like, nah, we didn't really have a metric. And we're measuring so much community stuff. We talk with the people. We try to have like quantitative, qualitative stuff. We have surveys every day. Like, we really try to have the most open communication with all of our users as possible. And I think that this is just a very fundamental different way of approaching those things. Also giving up the power to let our best users decide also in what way our rules get applied and how moderation works, right? They just gave it to an Indian company who just 24/7 just did like Facebook does it, right? So it's a very fundamental difference in how we approach the same problem, I guess.
Another question is, how do you monetize? And the last one is, do you have any plans of opening in South America?
So right now we're showing ads, but we're showing them like very, very hidden in the app. So I mean, ads are always like one way to monetize, but we're also looking at different stuff, right? So one of the things we're trying to build right now is, in German, it's digitale Litfaßsäule. It's like, do you have an idea what's in English? So basically, everyone on Yodel, like we're testing that right now, could sponsor their post, so it's always the third or the fourth post for like an hour. Super cheap. What we want to do with this is like empowering everyone to get like their message out there, because we had cases, for example, where a girl lost her USB drive, which had a video for the funeral of her father. And what she did is she posted on Yodel. She was like super, yeah, the train was leaving like 4 hours. She had no idea where it is. So all of Yodel got together, that was in Passau, to try to help this girl. And those are cases that show like the importance of being able to maybe get your word out there, right? So we want to empower all of our users to do that. And yeah, so this is another business opportunity, and we're also looking in other stuff. And the third question was South America. We've been there. Like Russia Today was running an article in Spanish about Yodel. No idea why. People in Uruguay and Mexico City really liked that and started to download the app. It was really weird. Like, there was a guy in Uruguay, he was just posting pictures of him in a diaper all the time. But right now it's not really our focus. We have like the communities that we have right now, and we expanded a lot, but currently we kind of thought that growth right now is not the most important issue. What we're seeing a lot is that there's a lot of harassment in comments, and also all of these political opinions, all of those issues, they are right now more important to us. Like, we figured out that just growing, like, of course we want to grow, but we think that we can grow better if we solve those issues that are currently the biggest issues our community tells us to solve. And I think that by solving the biggest issues of the community then will at some point grow again.
One that you've both talked about is how if your main users and your ambassadors, if you do have an ambassador that somehow or a power user that has gone negative, how do you best address that, do you feel?
Well, in that case where the guy threatened to kill someone, I tried to have a call with him actually. I think it boils down to a lot of one-on-one communication and the way you write an email and the way you try to talk to someone. You have to be very diplomatic because I think what you mentioned as well is the danger when you have power users or ambassadors, you give them a lot of power so they do stuff for you. But if things go wrong, they have a lot of power to actually voice their negative feelings. So you have to do a lot of damage control and have to act very fast and ideally get that person on the phone immediately and try to calm them down. And sometimes this takes days, weeks, or months even, where you basically spend a lot of time of trying to control the situation. So my best take is to just take it one-on-one and ideally, I mean, phone call or even better face-to-face. A lot of times it's misunderstandings and wrong expectations and frustrations that you can easily solve, but you have to be able to talk to people and get people to talk to you in order to solve it.
Yeah, not too much to add, I would say, but what's also very important is that you stay true to your purpose, to your values, and to your guidelines. So, for example, if moderators on Yodel, if they continuously abuse their power, if they violate like our values, we need to cut them. Like, yeah. So even if like communication and everything, I do agree, but at some point I also say like, it's over.
So a more general question, you said like communities, they should be meaningful, they should engage people regularly. And if more and more companies see that and at least believe communities are an essential part of what they're doing, what do you believe? Like how many communities, meaningful communities, can someone be a part of? Like 2, 3, 5? And where does it stop? I mean, starting with co-living communities and going to serial lovers. Yeah.
So I don't think that there's like a hard number. I think it depends a lot also on your time. Like I just think you have 24 hours on a day. Like if you want to participate actually in the communities and also to really have like the feeling of belonging to a community, you also have to interact with those people. You have to spend time there, right? It's like basically online communities are just a way of having the offline community in a different setting, right? So if you don't really spend time there, if you never go there, then you're not really part of the community. So I think the limit is actually how much time you have to spend in communities.
I think the only thing I would add is that obviously it's fluid and it overlaps, and I think that often when we think about communities, especially in a company and brand context, we never think about people leaving the community again. It's always, everything is optimized to grow and to keep people engaged and retain, and if you see your retention numbers going down, you think you have a problem, and you do everything to kind of like keep users on your platform. But sometimes it's just okay that people move on. Maybe they got what they wanted out of your community and they're ready to, you know, move on, and maybe they come back in 5 years. I think that logic is just not applied to a lot of places, and that's why people freak out. But I think it's actually a normal thing for people to move on and maybe join another community or live on an island and do anything. Yeah.
I really like the view about being true to your community. I wanted to ask that were there instances where you used psychology or behavioral psychology or observed patterns and then made some changes or brought some features into the platforms?
I didn't.
So the question is like being true to the community and then seeing like psychology. I didn't.
Both are different. My main question is that did you use psychology or behavioral patterns to bring features or do something different in the community?
I mean, if you're designing a product, if you do like product development, most of the time you are using some sort of behavioral psychology, right? What could be good example? Okay, we didn't implement this, but it's actually a feature I really, really liked. It's like you can design your you can design for like what you should try is to design your app like that. Good behavior you want to happen is easier than abusive behavior, right? You want to have like big hurdles for negative stuff and make it as frictionless as possible for positive stuff. And for me, for example, one feature that I really liked that didn't make it is that you just double tap on a post to upvote, and you have to search, and if you want to downvote, it's kind of harder, right? So like this, you can increase votes, upvotes, like positive reactions, and decrease downvoting. Reason why we didn't do that is that actually downvoting has also a curating function, right? It's like if people express that it's a negative post, it could be, it's also like this tool to self-govern. That's why we didn't do it. But that would be an example.
Okay, cool. Now we're going to wrap up. A big round of applause again to finish. That was dope.
Que la famille.